Hello and welcome back to the Product Launch Podcast. As always, my name is Sean Boyce. I'm the founder of Next Step, where we offer product strategy services. And my guest today is George, a friend of mine, who is a marketing consultant. The kind of work that George does is he drives organic growth for tech and SaaS companies through content and SEO. Hello, George. How are you? And thank you for being on the show.
Hey, Sean. Thanks for having me. Everything good here, and glad to be here with you and discussing all these very interesting things.
Awesome. And where are you calling into the show from today?
I'm in Greece, Thessaloniki, second largest city here in Greece, and I'm at my home right now.
Very cool. Exciting stuff. Well, thanks for being on the show. We got plenty to talk about, and in particular with your area of expertise and that being very important for the type of companies that we both work with. Why don't you give for myself and the listeners some more information about yourself, some background, and in the type of work that you do?
Sure. So I started a few years ago. I got into marketing after doing many jobs I didn't particularly like or even be good at. And then at some point I realized that I want to try this new thing out. I mean, at this time it was something like social media. And so I experimented a bit. I did some social media consulting with small businesses. And then I experimented a bit more with social ads, Facebook and Instagram in particular. And then, I mean, gradually I got into content, and I started to realize that content is something that I really enjoy doing. It pays the bills, and also it's something that the clients that I had at this time seem to get the most value out of. And so I developed that, and from content I went to content and SEO, because I think that those two things are strictly connected to each other. And so now we are offering services that have to do with content and SEO. So that's pretty much it.
Well, that is very important marketing information for sure. I've come to really know the value of that myself as I've evolved over time. But yeah, I would love to know more about that. I guess in particular, first and foremost is, who do you do that type of work for nowadays?
So nowadays we're working with mostly with tech and SaaS companies, and we're working with companies that are post-PMF, post-product market fit, which means that they have found a product market fit. Of course, a logical question here would be, how do you know if a company has found a product market fit or not? In my experience, all these metrics that people say that help, for example, NPS or CSAT, and all these, I would say not vanity metrics, but unimportant metrics, can't tell you the truth. I mean, you can't know, you're not able to know if a company has found a product market fit or not, if it has a good NPS. Okay, and so I would say that nowadays it's part of our screening to try to identify whether or not a company has found a product market fit. And this is very critical, because we have realized that these are the companies that we can actually help. We can't help, and most of the times I don't advise someone to start investing in those things if they're pro-PMF. And so they have to find a product market fit. Of course, they have to have the resources to invest in such an initiative. And when I say the resources, I usually look for profitability, or the company has to have raised less than $1 million for us, more than $1 million, I'm sorry, less than a year ago, so that they have the resources to invest in such a strategy. And so these are usually the things that we are looking at, and also the traffic, because we are not taking on clients with less than 20 to 25,000 visitors per month. Yeah, that's pretty much our target audience, you may say.
Nice. Yeah, it's certainly good to know who qualifies, who's a fit. And thanks for adding some color around that, finding product market fit as well too. We get that question a lot. And it can be a complicated answer, but it's important to know for sure. So because this is your area of expertise, I am very curious to know personally myself, I do a fair bit of creating organic content for my business, not just my consulting business, but the software business I've been involved with as well too. So please do tell, how do we drive, what's the best way for these types of companies to drive organic growth?
Sure. So basically, we work with a framework that we've developed. And this framework consists of 6 stages. The stage of understanding, where we essentially try to understand what the company has done so far, what worked, what hasn't worked. Then we have the stage of planning, where the company, with us, of course, has to create the strategy, basically what we are going to do in the months to come. Then we have to start optimizing, and many people, they want to create before optimizing, but for me, this is a mistake. First, you have to optimize what you already have, the existing assets that live on your website. And then we have, of course, the stage of creation, where we have to create new content pages. For SaaS companies in particular, we have to create some feature pages related to the product, or at some cases, pages related to competition, because we get, like more bottom of the funnel content with comparison guides or VS content pieces. Then, of course, we have to amplify our efforts, and we usually do that, for example, through link building. And then finally, we have the stage of measure, where we measure what we've done so far, what works and what doesn't work, and how we'll be able to scale our efforts in order to get more. So this is our stage. Of course, as you can imagine, Son, not all the clients that we have and we are working with choose to work with us for all the 6 stages, because some of them, for example, have in-house resources that create the content, or some of them may work with another vendor that handles the link building for them. So this is our framework, but we are, we are able to help clients with, as you can imagine, with all the spectrum of their organic growth initiatives. But we also always respect, their needs and their wants to work with another vendor or to use their in-house resources for content creation, link building, or any other actions.
That's great. And can you summarize for us again the 6 steps? What are each of the 6 steps?
Sure. The 6 steps are understand. Sorry, just a sec.
That's okay. You want to do that one over again?
No, it's just the noise. I don't know if you get it.
I actually can't hear it. I think I'm fine.
Yeah?
I don't think I'm picking up on it now.
Okay.
Is it loud over there?
It's a bit loud.
Okay, you do that one over again?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, let me set you up for that one. Great. And can you share with us again kind of a summary of the 6 steps?
Of course. The first one is the stage of understanding. Then we have the stage of planning. Then we need to optimize, create, amplify our efforts. And then at the end, we have the stage of measure. We measure our efforts, and we try to identify opportunities and see how we can scale our efforts.
Got it. Thank you for that. And with your experience in SEO as well too, I'm super curious myself, because I've studied it a little bit, and I know it changes over time. And every time the big search companies change their algorithms, some stuff will become more important, some stuff will be less important. So I heard you mention things like backlinks a couple of times. Can you give us kind of a brief overview now on like what is the latest and greatest today? What should companies be focusing on from an SEO perspective? What's kind of most important in the order of priority there?
I think that's a great question. I think that many people get this part wrong, because they're always trying to catch up with the latest updates. For example, now we had a very major update. They call it BERT, and everyone is trying to catch up with it and see, are they affected? Are they not? And I mean, I always try to explain to my partners, to my clients that, yeah, things may change, and this is a good thing. But if we do things the right way, and if we provide, you know, a solid experience to the users, to visitors, to people trusting us, you know, to get knowledge from, we have nothing to be afraid of. I mean, things will always evolve, and this is a good thing. But back to your question, I think that right now, one of the most important things is search intent. And search intent is also connected to user experience, the experience that the visitor actually has on the page. And so I think that you have to be able to satisfy search intent, and also to provide users with a great experience while on the website. I mean, this may seem like you know, a very generic statement, but it's the only thing that works. Yes, there are other things, that backlinks, for example, that work after a certain point. After, for example, you manage to rank a page, let's say on the first page, yes, you need backlinks to get it to the first 3 spots. But it's all about identifying search intent, satisfying search intent with your content, and providing users with a great overall experience on the website.
Yeah, that's a great point. And what you mentioned there first, which was you have nothing to be afraid of if you're kind of following the right process there. I think that's some of the best advice I've gotten about SEO previously too. So it's great to hear you confirm that, because it makes sense to me, but I don't have as much expertise in this area as you do. What I remember previously was this from the other source that I heard it from. They said, I've just been focusing on creating great content. And every time they publish a
Yeah.
change to the algorithm, they actually do better in the results than anyone else that's trying to like game the system.
Yeah, and there are many examples of websites that you know, are positively affected by all these changes, or by some of these changes. This shows us that, you know, these people are doing something you know, right. You don't have to be afraid of nothing if you're sure that what you're providing is valuable for the visitors.
Good point. So the other thing I'm curious about too, and something you just mentioned, was kind of 2 different ways to come at your building your strategy that way. I'd be curious to hear you talk a little bit about, do you start with just writing content and then gaining traction and then update your strategy from there? Or should you kind of work backwards to what you had mentioned, which was like search intent? Would it be more important to find out what people are searching for before you determine what you're going to write about? I'd be curious to hear you kind of weigh the pros and cons of those approaches.
Yeah, if you, I mean, most people would be surprised to know that they can, you know, do like classify search intent by themselves without having to trust, you know, or to hire any SEO, let's say, expert or content expert or whatever. All you need to do is just take a look on the SERPs. Just take a look at the, you know, search engine results page and see for the topic or subtopic you're searching for, what are the top results? Google is essentially telling us nowadays that if you want to be considered as a trusted source for this topic or subtopic, you need to write something about this. Essentially, is you know, it's telling us everything from what title we need to use, what specific words we need to use in our title, to what you know, our meta description has to be, what our paragraphs have to be, and so on and so forth. I mean, the information is out there. I think we make it more complicated than it actually is. And when I say search intent classification, so on, it's a very simple process. All you need to do, let's say that you have defined a topic that you want to cover in your blog, okay? All you need to do is just make a search for this topic and count the number of occurrences on the top 10 results, okay? Is it a guide? Is it a list post? Is it what is guide? What is it? Try to identify it and try to do something better than that. This is search intent classification. And of course, you have to, it's one thing, you know, classifying search intent by taking a look at the SERPs, and another thing, satisfying it with providing a great experience for the visitor. So once you identified what you need to write about, go on and create a great piece. This is the ultimate advice for anyone who wants to invest in content creation, let's say.
That's great. Thank you. And shifting gears to, I'm sure what the listeners are curious about as well too, as I am, is when should these types of business be investing in this form of marketing?
Sure, that's a great question. As I mentioned before, I think that SaaS and tech companies should not be investing in SEO in particular before they find a product market fit. SEO is a long-term strategy. You have to be committed. You have to be engaged. Regardless if you have an in-house team or partners and vendors, you have to be engaged with the process. Okay, so I wouldn't advise someone to start investing in it before they found a product market fit. But on the other hand, content, I think that content is something that especially tech and SaaS companies should consider invest early on. And of course, in the beginning, as you can imagine, you don't need traffic so much. You need to convince the few people that will come on your website, just to sign up for a free trial. And how you can do that? Simply, for example, by creating some case studies. If you have something really great, then show it with the visitors, your visitors and potential users. And so I would say that you should start investing in content early on, but the scope has to be a bit different. SEO, on the other hand, is something you should start investing after you find the product market fit.
That's a good distinction, and agreed. I think that often makes a lot of sense in both. I think people put a lot of investment believing in that SEO can work magic for them. But like you said, it's going to be limited by knowing what people are searching for and knowing what kind of converts for you. So it's going to take a certain amount of data to really know how you can make that accelerate your progress. But until then, it sounds like that investing in content makes a lot of sense almost at any point. That can't necessarily hurt, and will help you kind of build momentum.
Yeah, definitely.
How about from the perspective of, because I know the next question is going to be, what should these companies be spending on these services, depending on the phase that they're in? Like, what does a budget look like?
Yeah, that's a very good question. As I see it nowadays, the cost of creating content, let's start with content creation, for example, is rising. Okay, content better or anything. It's just that the cost is rising. Of course, you can outsource this work, and you can hire some a cheap, let's say, content creator to do the work. But in my experience, this will not help. This will not get you anywhere. You may have some pieces to fill in your schedule, your editorial calendar, but this won't be enough in the long term. And trust me, when the point comes that you will have to invest in SEO, for example, and one of the first things that you will need to do is a content audit. Most of the content that you invested money in will be more likely deleted or merged or whatever, which means that you have to be very careful with the decisions you take early on. I think that companies should spend what they are comfortable with. I mean, if you're comfortable spending X amount of dollars per month on paid social or advertising in total, you should allocate some of that budget for content and SEO as well, especially if you found a product market fit. So I would say that the general answer here is spend what you feel comfortable with. Don't overspend just to see results quicker. Content and SEO doesn't work like that.
Yeah, that's very helpful. That's a lot of value. And thank you for answering the questions that I have and also being here to answer questions for both myself and listeners about this content, this topic in particular, which is very important for those in the SaaS business space. So, having said that, a couple other questions I have for you are, what resources would you recommend that myself and the listeners go seek out and start kind of consuming information from in and around this area of expertise?
Yeah, that's a good question. I would say that one of my go-to blogs, of course, is Ahrefs. I'm sure you already know Ahrefs. It's an amazing SaaS company based in Singapore. They offer actionable advice that is connected to their product. I would highly recommend anyone to, just pay a visit to their blog. And also something that I would like to mention here is that, there's too much information out there regarding content and SEO. I would say that for someone who is just starting out, it may seem, like overcomplicated, but it's not. In my experience, it's all about the process. So I would say that if you want to learn things in order to apply those things for your own company or for clients, then what you need to do is just try to systemize everything and processize as you learn. So get the advice, visit blogs, YouTube channels, whatever, but try to processize everything and make it specific. This is the only way it will work for you, or for a tech company, SaaS company, whatever.
Excellent. And thanks for sharing that, Tolia. That's a great site. I'll link to that in the notes as well. And last question I have for you is, who should reach out to you and how can they get in touch?
Sure. So right now we are in the process of creating our new agency. We will launch it early next year on January. And this agency will focus solely on serving tech and SaaS companies, as we already do, of course, but we will get even more specific into that. So SaaS and tech companies founders or marketing managers, of course, who have raised money or have reached profitability. Obviously, they have to find a product market fit first. If they are not sure if they found it, they should reach out to you first and then come to us. And I would say that you have to have some traffic. You have to get some traffic, and then you should come to us to help you amplify that.
Excellent. So what would be the best way to reach out to you for now? Like email or via like LinkedIn or anything like that? What's the best source?
Sure. We will drop a link of my LinkedIn and Facebook profiles. I try to be active on both. And the website will be ready in a couple of months. We can also drop the link of our new website on the show notes as well.
Excellent. Thank you for that. And thanks for being on the show and sharing your insight.
Thank you very much for having me, son.
Thanks for listening to this episode of the Product Launch Podcast powered by Next Step. If you or anyone you know is involved in scaling a B2B SaaS business, please have them reach out to me about becoming a potential guest on our show. They can email me at sean@nextstep.io. That's SEAN@nxtstep.io. This time, we'd like to take a moment to thank the sponsor of our show, Next Step Consulting. Would you like to know what the right next steps are for your B2B SaaS business? Are you trying to grow and scale, but you're stuck? We can help. To find out how Next Step can help your B2B SaaS business achieve its goals, please email me, sean@nextstep.io. That's SEAN@nxtstep.io. Thanks, and keep disrupting.